Hi guys, editor Davey here. So the video recording didn't come out okay, but the audio did. So I'm gonna put a pretty picture up on screen throughout the whole video. I apologize, this is more of a podcast and less of an actual video. Next week I will do better, but here we are. New year. Thank you guys for bearing with this, and yeah, enjoy the video. Howdy everybody, happy new year. I hope you guys are all doing great. I hope the start to your 2026 has been safe and healthy and good, and I hope the rest of your year goes fantastic. Let's start off with some RPG horror stories for the year, shall we? Our first story is going to be from Regular Lengthiness 9, titled The Reality of Playing Online in the Age of Brain Rot. I'm honestly not sure if this counts as a horror story, but it definitely kept me up at night. Me and my friend group were all around 18 to 22 years old. We played D&D. I usually DM, and recently I had the urge to try an experiment with different campaign types we haven't played before for a short adventure lasting 3 sessions. First session would be a detective solving a crime and searching for the culprit, while the second and third are dungeon crawls with unique gimmicks and puzzles. I was transparent with everyone in the beginning, saying what the campaign will be about. At the time, I also just got my first job while still in university, so all of my already small amount of free time was going into this campaign. Also important to note, we play online since we live far apart. The campaign starts, the vibes are great, and everyone is investigating the crime site. They are curious about this stuff, and the bard, he plays without a mic, is writing down everybody's notes. We have a paladin, a wizard, a bard, and a cleric. But once they start getting clues out of the NPCs, I notice the wizard is mostly silent, while the cleric is kinda out of it and doesn't listen to every word. They continue playing for about half an hour, and then I hear from the wizard's mic that he's playing League of Legends. Like, I get watching YouTube shorts or texting, especially online. It's not as immersive and it's hard not to lose focus, but League? Come on. Everyone laughs at him, jokes about it, but me and the paladin are really annoyed at this. Soon after the bard, the notes taker goes AFK every 10 minutes because he's playing Yu-Gi-Oh on his phone. The whole vibe is like they're half listening. It happened in other campaigns sometimes when turns were long or when we were getting through some mundane stuff, but this was excessive and too long. The paladin, who genuinely loves D&D and as our secondary DM, is all ears, the main moving force, not taking the spotlight, just moving forward when everyone is silent. I don't think it even was the quality of the campaign, because there were a lot of fun NPCs everyone as the group liked and some magic items they got. It's just they literally couldn't focus because of the brain rot and how they can't perceive stories or anything without someone or something in the background, while still not fully getting is being shown them. Okay, I think this could be a couple things, and I really don't think it's, quote, brain rot. One is that they might not vibe with like a mystery session and perhaps prefer more combat-oriented campaigns. If a player doesn't vibe with a campaign, it could cause them to lose attention or interest, though I personally think this is more that the players are kind of just being shitty and don't respect the game or OP. This could be because ground rules or expectations have not been set. It wouldn't hurt to let your players know, hey, the expectation is if you're going to be here and playing, it's because you want to play. This means no phone, League of Legends, whatever. Your attention should be on the game and not anything else. Let them know you work hard with what little free time you have to set this up, and if they're doing other things, it's a slap in the face to you and the time you spent setting up and running the game. If they want to play League, that's fine, but they will not be participating in the campaign if that's the case. For me personally, I put a lot of time into prep work and ideas for my campaign and my campaigns. If I found out one of my players was watching a show or playing freaking League, I would not be a happy camper. If I'm going to take the time to prep story beats and threads, especially for your character, the least you can do is actively participate in the game. If you can't, that's not an issue. Go play League somewhere else. I personally wouldn't be like mad. I'd just be immensely disappointed. Sometimes, unfortunately, you just need to be blunt and honest. Don't be angry or scream or shout or anything like that. Just let them know that if they're going to do other things, they're not respecting your time and they should just not be playing. Like, yes, you might lose players at your table, but I'd rather have fewer, more active players than a bunch of inactive people playing League or Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic or whatever the hell. In the second session, the cleric fucking plays Danganronpa and writes in his blog while everyone else explores the abandoned dungeon of a wizard who learned how to capture elementals and infuse them into objects. I just couldn't take it anymore and left the voice call at that point. Only about 10 minutes later I came back, but the vibes were ruined. They liked the final battle against a ton of air elementals that controlled the elevator that the party was on, and still said they had fun. except the wizard, who said he's not a fan of the detective stuff, which is fair. He never played it, so he just found out it's not fun for him. I just don't know. Is this common? I believe if this is in person, it wouldn't be that bad, but it genuinely feels insane how hard it is to keep jingling keys in front of them just to keep their attention for a minute. I thought it was my fault and I made a boring game, but the paladin said it was great because he was following the story and actually participated. Is our generation cooked, or am I a bad DM? This could just be because they don't vibe with a more RP focused or mystery style campaign setting, which is fine, but that sort of dialogue should occur and they should be willing to be open about it so you can shift to fit that player's style if necessary. Them wandering and playing other things or working on a blog is, to be honest, just rude. I get checking your phone in between turns in combat or something like that, but to actively disengage from the game is a disservice to the other players and is a slap in the face to OP, who is taking their valuable time to create the setting and the game for them. If they won't stop, that player needs to step away from the table, to be blunt. It's perfectly okay to not vibe with a game type. I get it. Not everybody wants to do a mystery. Not everybody wants to do a really slow dungeon crawl or anything like that. Some people just want to wander around and do chaotic shit, or some people just want to go and fight stuff. And I get it. It makes sense. But you need to, if you realize it's not your vibe, if it's just for the session, just grit your teeth and kind of go through with it, and then actively have communication with your DM. Be like, hey, I'm glad you put this together and we got to try it. I found, though, that this is not my kind of vibe. I don't want to play another campaign like this again. Not that you're bad. It's just I have issues maybe keeping attention, or I'm just not interested in mysteries. I prefer when we get to fight stuff or something like that. But actively be talking with your DM about that stuff, especially feedback after sessions. And if you're participating in playing a game, you should be actively in the moment playing the game, even if it's not your turn. Be paying attention to stuff. I get in between turns in combat or something like that. Maybe you're taking time away. You're not focusing on what's happening in the moment because you're prepping what you're going to do on your turn. That makes sense. Or you're answering a quick text message, but you should not be watching the newest season of Fallout. You should not be playing a fucking League game. You should, if you're going to be doing something, it needs to be something you can set down at a moment's notice and just go. If you're going to be doing something, because it's rude otherwise. Sit there and be like, oh, I can't play for the next 10 minutes. I'm in the middle of a freaking Yu-Gi-Oh match. That's rude. That's straight and plain and simple. It's rude. Alrighty, if you guys are enjoying the video so far, please do remember to like and subscribe. Also, if you haven't yet, check me out on Twitch. Links are down in the description. I stream on Twitch throughout the week and would love for you guys to come hang out with me. Our next story is from user Red Hot Owl and is titled Gooner DM Can't Help Themselves and Derailed Their Entire Game. The fact that this sort of thing has been an issue 2 or 3 times I've attempted to join an online D&D game is kind of wild. At this point, I can't tell whether I'm just a prude, joined the hobby too late, have terrible luck, or if it really is that common of an experience. When I think D&D, the last thing that comes to mind is dating drama and forced romance arcs. Sure, that stuff can be part of a game, but unless you specifically advertise the campaign as such, I feel like most players don't expect it to devolve into poorly written smut novels. The first time I tried to join an online D&D game, I posted about it, but to sum it up, it never actually got going because the DM basically decided my halfling wasn't, quote, hot enough. Apparently that mattered a lot because she planned for everyone to get flirted with at some point. The second attempt was uneventful, scheduling just didn't work out. I guess third time wasn't the charm, and it's probably been my worst experience yet. All right, I personally never have run into this, the DM wanting hot PCs and stuff like that, but I can definitely see it potentially being a thing happening. It's a bit odd that a DM would be only wanting sexually attractive PCs, but I don't know, it's their game, I guess. The most common thing I run into, and that I think most people run into, is scheduling issues. They suck. And they're probably the most common reason why games end up ending or just not even starting at all. It's just because trying to collaborate and get all of these people together, either in a room at the same time or to be online at the same time and available, especially when people are adults, can be quite difficult because of everything that's going on in life, either multiple jobs, trying to keep the house afloat, or family obligations, or just obligations in life in general, medical issues, whatever. It's like that. I feel like scheduling issues is probably the most common reason why games either don't come to be or end up ending ultimately. Once again, at the start, everything looked fine. The group seemed beginner-friendly, had a healthy mix of RP and combat, and most players were European, which was a big plus for scheduling. The DM seemed nice enough, at least no glaring red flags or anything like that. They did come across as a bit Tumblr-ish, no offense to anyone, I don't know how else to describe it. Constantly gushing over fictional ships and character designs, but I didn't think much of it. I played with people like that before, who were still perfectly capable of handling serious, mature characters when it mattered. Also, I'm not sure if I've mentioned this explicitly in any of my previous stories, but as an ace person, I've learned to remind myself that just because that kind of stuff doesn't interest me, it doesn't mean I get to judge anyone for enjoying it. This time I went with a tiefling druid, kind of an odd combo, I know, but I had a solid backstory in mind. The DM even encouraged it, since the game wasn't supposed to be min-max focused. We actually made it past session 0, which was already a rare victory. Random side note. I don't know if I want to include this or not. I do think it's a little odd that they note I played with people like that before who were still perfectly capable of handling serious, mature characters when it mattered, but then they also note it's a rare victory that they got past session 0. They've noted this is like the 3rd time. Maybe this is for in-person play when that mature character stuff. Maybe that was it. I'm hoping, okay, I'm not trying to call out like the OP here, OP here. Make it sound like this might be not real, but it is a concern of mine that we have. It's that writing sounds really, really weird. And that could just be after the fact here and they're looking back on this or what, I don't know. I won't bore you with the details, but things kicked off with a pretty standard setup. The town where we all met got attacked, we fought our way out, and we ended up tasked with delivering a dying NPC's important message to a relative up north. Nothing groundbreaking, but I liked it. For the next week or so, things went smoothly. Sure, the main goal was pretty straightforward, but to the DM's credit, there were enough side dungeons and encounters to keep things interesting. And those quiet campaign moments were a good chance for the PCs to get to know each other. And then it happened, the plot twist that changed the entire vibe of the campaign. After accidentally rescuing what turned out to be some powerful hellspawn from its prison, we were forced into a contract that basically assigned each of us our own personal devil patron. Think Mizora from Baldur's Gate 3, who granted certain buffs. Honestly, not a bad hook, and since my character was a tiefling who had rejected his infernal side by embracing druidism and self-isolation, having that connection forced back into his life was satisfying from a narrative standpoint. Until it wasn't. As the game went on, the DM kept casually reminding everyone that our assigned devils were specifically succubi. Nearly every single one of us responded with a collective, okay, and just continued playing. I've been around long enough to see exactly where this was going, but I still tried to give them the benefit of the doubt, especially since the rest of the players seemed pretty chill. Again, the writing on that one is a little weird that they've been around long enough to see, because they've made it sound like this is a 3rd online game. To me, it is a little odd that they're mentioning like they can kind of see this coming. I'm hoping that this isn't like, this is them looking back on it, but also I'm hoping this isn't like, I'm not trying to say they're fabricating everything, but it just sounds a little weird to me. They're like, this is my 3rd online game, but also I'm mature enough and I have been through no bullshit to see this coming. It's like you've been through 2 games, one which never even started, and the other one was, didn't even get started because your PC wasn't sexy enough. Maybe this is due to in-person games. Again, I'm not trying to say that OP here is fabricating a story. It just, some of the wording's a little off. Maybe it's because they're looking at this in hindsight, and so they're like, oh yeah, I totally saw that coming. I have seen these markers before or whatever. Overall though, I would say looking at this from like person in it, things like seem pretty good so far. I kind of like that forced contract hook. When I put devils in my campaigns, my players are usually insanely hesitant to even consider a contract with the devil. And if they do, it literally turns into every PC wanting to take a gander over the fine print of somebody's contract. Now, the DM making all the assigned devils succubi is a bit weird, but just because you have a succubi doesn't mean that they have to be sexual. If it's not obvious that the DM's grand vision was that we'd slowly become corrupted by our lustful desires and eventually give into it. And apparently lust was the only vice worth exploring. No greed, wrath, pride, ambition, nothing. Just that. Now, in theory, even that could work if handled with restraint and maturity, but it quickly became apparent that this wasn't a psychological corruption arc. It was basically turning into one big fetish session for the DM. That really is a shame because succubi could mess with the player's dreams usually. Usually that's kind of like the vibe and lore-wise that succubus kind of mess, like, yes, they're thought of like as sex demons and whatnot. They're also viewed as like going into people's dreams and messing with those dreams, which could make for some really interesting storytelling. Like they could rack them with dreams of lost loved ones and make them greedy for those days, or play off of that and make them wrathful and want revenge. Like, Lost is a fine sin to delve into, don't get me wrong, but it needs to be with the right players and the right characters. Everything came to a screeching halt when we found ourselves in a situation where we were about to die, and another player, a female kitsune wizard, was encouraged to draw more power from her patron to save us. And by encouraged, I mean the DM basically railroaded her into it with a, you kind of have to. So she did, under the understanding that there would be a price to pay later. Later came that same night at camp, when her succubus patron manifested and announced that payment was due, right there in front of the entire party. The DM then proceeded to describe how we could all see the outline of a certain horse-like appendage begin to form between her legs. Nope. Nope, 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 nope. If you want to have ERP in your games, that's perfectly fine. But this needs to be discussed and approved ahead of time. Why would the succubi not want to make the player do something potentially bad and cause pain in the world? Have them taint some crops, or have them cause misfortune to somebody, so that devil, that succubi, could then sweep in to that person who is under misfortune and get a contract signed with them, get their soul, to unscrew them out of that that misfortune of a situation. But instead, the succubi just wants to have a roll in the hay. And that was that. Almost all of us, except one player, who more or less called us snowflakes, collectively noped out right then and there. The DM tried to backpedal and say it wasn't mandatory, but come on. If that had been the only weird moment, maybe someone could have brushed it off as a lapse in judgment. But this had been building for several sessions ever since the succubi plotline was introduced. Not mandatory, but it's literally stated that they owe the patron. Also, you let that gin out of the bottle, there is no coming back from trying to force another player into erotic roleplay. Not unless you've apologized, owned up to it, and promised it wouldn't happen again, but even still, that damage has been done. There's no coming back from it, to be honest, like overall anyway. Shout out to the 3 people from that game who stayed in touch and invited me to another D&D group they swear is at least normal. Here's hoping I finally get to experience a full campaign. TLDR, DM derailed their own campaign with increasingly blatant fetish content, and most of the group leave as a result. For those thinking, why not try a local group? Trust me, I love to, but there aren't any nearby I could realistically join, and any that do exist are likely exclusive friend groups I'm unlikely to run into. Okay, good on these players for leaving. Hopefully they get to have a more acceptable experience at their next table. I will say overall, do not be afraid to leave a table if you are not comfortable with where it is going, especially if it's broaching topics that you did not agree to. Bad D&D is much, 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 much worse than no D&D. Just do no D&D if it's going to content or topics you don't want to broach and are insanely uncomfortable with. You should not have to sit through erotic roleplay or the DM's fetishes or other players' kinks just because you really badly want to play D&D. Our last story is going to be from user Axelfidic. I know I definitely butchered that. And it's titled, I don't think I can stand to play with another chaotic neutral player. I'm here to vent. I just played my first D&D campaign last semester, and it was a really mixed bag of, this is really fun, why haven't I played ttrpg sooner, and this fucking sucks. I could have been literally doing anything else instead of enduring this other player's bullshit. The biggest problem character was a chaotic neutral wood elf druid named Eldrad. He was an absolute sociopath who sabotaged the group's efforts to gain support from the local church because, haha, wouldn't it be so funny if I wild-shaped into a hawk and dive into the holy water? Throughout the game, he would constantly waste our limited time to solve the missing persons case that we were working on, with trying to get a spider drunk and falling off a roof because he was drinking non-stop. In a graveyard sequence, he wasted more time in spell slots pretending to be a ghost for no real reason at all. Once we progressed further into the story, we realized that people were possessed by parasitic worms. One half of the group wanted to kill everybody that might be infected, and Eldrad made Holocaust jokes because he was using mold earth to create a giant enclosure to trap the villagers inside so they could be set on fire. At the end of our campaign, we were trapped in psychic flashbacks, and Eldrad just straight up tried to kill the kids in his home village. It was absolutely horrendous. Motherfucker, act like a person. And to top it all off, He had the gall, the brazen audacity to call me boring because I wanted to do the plot and finish the campaign before finals. You know what's really boring? Not making progress. How do you guys handle assholes like Eldrad? Okay, the DM should be reining Eldrad in. If a player is doing stuff that is really derailing the campaign, a discussion needs to be had. It's one thing to have occasional shenanigans. It's another where every 5 minutes, it's like happening and he's trying to derail shit. He's not being chaotic neutral. He is being chaotic stupid or chaotic asshole. Eldrad needs to grow up. And sometimes they need to be confronted with the fact that they're acting like a little shit for them to fix that. The best way is for the DM to let them know that that shit won't fly. If not, if multiple people join together to call it out, that might help curtail it as well. But the real fix might only be removing Eldrad from the campaign. And by Eldrad, I mean the player, not the character, the player. Hopefully not this campaign is over. Eldrad's player isn't going to be invited to the next campaign. If they're in the next campaign, I would be super hesitant to deal with them again, especially if their shenanigans are very annoying, which is what it sounds like it is. Because that is going to carry over. There is not just going to be the one-time Eldrad and you're done. It's going to be Eldrad 2 Electric Boogaloo. And you probably don't want to deal with it. So either they need to leave or you need to step out. Okay, everybody, that is going to be it for me today. Thank you guys all for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of the stories down below in those comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I will catch you guys all next time. Happy 2026, everybody. I hope your year is wonderful. Bye, everybody.